We are now recording. So my name is Kim Lee. I am the founder and CEO of Forge. We are a co-working space in Birmingham, Alabama. I know there's some people here who are not in Birmingham, so thank y'all for joining us. But we are located in the heart of downtown Birmingham, and we are a co-working space. So we are a membership-based business for small business owners, entrepreneurs, remote workers. And really what we love at Forge is that we get to help other businesses grow. And we do that through space, through community, through education. But one of the things that we really love is that we get to impact the greater Birmingham small business and entrepreneur community through lunch and learns and education that we regularly hold at Forge in person. So since we have all been working from home, we have changed to a webinar platform, which has been really great because it has allowed other people to join us in on that education. And so we really want to do what we can during this crazy time to help all businesses grow and really address topics that are current and will really set your business up for success as we're entering into phase 2 of what business will look like after COVID-19. So please take a time to introduce yourself in the chat, what you do. Also, if you have topics that you would like to see addressed, we would love to address those. There's so many webinars right now out there, especially concerning COVID-19 and your business. But if you have topics that you would like to see us address or learn more about for next phases of business, marketing, anything, just let us know and we will do what we can to get those, and we'll let you know if we do. So I am going to turn my screen off and I'm going to let Kevin take over. But our layout for the day is Kevin will go through his presentation, and then we will open it up at the end for questions and answers. So please use the chat. Let us know if you have any questions. There's a Q&A box. You can also use that if you'd rather it not be everybody see your question. And for those of you watching on Facebook Live, feel free to leave your questions in the comments there, and we will try to address those. So now I'm going to turn it over to Kevin. Kevin, we work with Kevin a lot at Forge. He runs a marketing and coaching firm called Everspaces. And so we are in a marketing cohort with him for co-working space owners. So it's really great for us. We get to talk with people and hear ideas. Kevin coaches and trains us on our specific industry, but so much of what he coaches and trains is not industry specific. So we are so excited to have Kevin here today to help us think through next step for business and how we should grow and what we need to be doing now to prepare for the future just to have a healthy business. So thank you, Kevin. I will let you take it from here. I'm going to turn my video off from now, and I'll join us back for the question and answers.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Kim. And thank you for those who are joining. Looks like we've got a few people here on Zoom, and I presume a few more people on Facebook Live. I've never been down to Birmingham. I'm from Canada, and I'm located just outside of Toronto. So I don't have as cool of an accent as you folks do, but I'm super jealous, and I plan to come and visit once this pandemic is over, because I'm already getting, my feet are already getting itchy, as I'm sure yours are too. So I'll jump right into it. I'm going to share my screen in just a moment. And while I do that, I'll give you a little bit more kind of context on who I am, just so that you kind of know who is this guy talking to me. And then Kim, could you also let me know in the chat, or could you just tell me if you can see my screen here? Okay, chat, perfect, lovely, thank you. Perfect. So yeah, I'm a marketing consultant. I specialize in helping co-working spaces get full, which is how Kim and I met. I've been doing web design for about 18 years and then digital marketing for about the last decade, without kind of aging myself or dating myself here. And then over the last few years, it's been primarily specialized in helping co-working spaces. But I also still work a little bit outside of the co-working industry, and I'm currently kind of helping some marketing consultants as well with their businesses. So I'm a bit all over the place, but I'm mostly specialized in co-working. But the big picture is, I'm not going to focus on coworking. I'm not going to teach you how to run a coworking space, but I'm going to try to give you as much of kind of my thought process on how to sort of, you're probably watching all kinds of stuff, webinars right now, about, navigating the current reality and into the future. And I'm very cautious not to try to just throw more stuff at you that you've probably heard before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to go through sort of a thought process and really just try to help ideally spark ideas and opportunities in your head. If you leave here with just one good idea and then you implement it, then I think that's the best plan. I'm going to throw a bunch of ideas at you, but I really don't want you to feel like you're overwhelmed or what have you. I will send these slides to Kim after, so if you want to kind of review them just to jog your memory or not to have to take notes, they'll be available to you. But yeah, the big picture is like, the world is sort of changing right now, and waiting for things to get back to normal or a new normal. Like this is just the reality. So we have to get on with life. So what I'm going to do is really just kind of give you some ideas that you can infuse into your business from a marketing perspective. I will talk a little bit about products and customers and how you can kind of shape shift a little bit of what you're doing. As a marketing consultant, I'm expert at marketing, but it does relate to your product. So I will kind of touch on how do you evolve your sort of business and then take that new business based on what the market is telling you to market. So you can adapt, and we'll get into all those strategies there. So big goal from this today is just to take one idea and implement it in your business. Don't try to do too much, because that's not going to work. I'd rather you take one, and then if you liked a few ideas, come back and do a few things. So without any further ado, I will jump right into my slides. I'm going to hit play here. I can see the chat on the side. I won't be watching it closely, but if you want to leave any questions in Zoom, you can. And Kim, I'll either, if you pop them in Zoom or if it looks very timely, I'll stop and I'll answer them. Otherwise, we can get to more questions at the end. And when we get to the end, if you have any marketing related questions that I haven't covered in this, that's what I do. I'm inside the business. I'm inside about 10 or 15 businesses at any given time, plus, the membership program that Kim belongs to with coworking. So I'm seeing a lot of different angles and seeing a lot of what's working, what's not. So if you have any other marketing questions that I can answer for you, by all means, happy to stick around and answer them for you at the end. And off we go. So the world has changed. You guys know that. What do we do now? Really, the first rule I would say is don't panic, don't overreact. I think most of you are pretty, we've all kind of, to the fact that this is like a real thing that's sort of happening and playing out in real time. The worst thing you could do is sort of panic and then have a fire sale and, just start reacting. And that's not what you want to do. At the same time, there are things that you should do. You just don't want to act out of fear. So it's good. We've taken a breath. It's been about a month and a half since since this sort of news has sort of hit us, and it's still kind of changing every day. So the big thing is to really give it thought. I like to listen to my instinct in times like this and like kind of follow the hunches that I have about what to do with my business. And I hope you do the same. So hopefully I'll give you a few ideas. But my big advice is just don't panic. We're going to kind of evolve with this. People still want to buy. The economy still wants to go on. People are still buying. And, some businesses are really affected, coworking being one of them, restaurants, hotels. But generally speaking, there are other ways to evolve your business. And that's what I'm going to really focus on. I'm not going to focus on the things we can't control, just the things that we can. So really, you've got three kind of core options right now. And this is intuitive, but we'll go through it real quick. One is you can play defense. So you can, you can like just try to, preserve cash and just kind of, stay alive. And there's a time to do that. And I think that's not a bad way to start. At least we've probably been doing that the last 6 weeks or so. The other thing that people could do is wait. So we could sort of sit and wait and say, you know what, look, I can't sell my products anymore. I'm just going to wait until things kind of get back to normal and see when that happens. And I've done the defense thing, and now I'm going to wait around. And then the third option is go on the offense. And that's really the focus of this conversation is, look, there's a time for playing defense. You do have to watch your cash. I think waiting is the worst thing you could do, because frankly, normal is changing by the day, and today is normal, and that's just going to be normal, and it's going to change just like it always has, probably at a faster rate than ever before. So I don't advise waiting. Get your defense out of the way, secure your stuff, skip waiting altogether, and then go right onto the offense. And that's where you're going to be the best off on the other side. So, if you break this down, if you're on the offense, you're going to get the lion's share of any business that's out there, of any results you could possibly have, of any possible best case scenario. You're going to have the lion's share of it. If you wait, yeah, you might have a little bit of a benefit up from that, the mouse's share, if you will. But if you play defense only, and if you wait only, you're going to have the ants share. So we're really focused on the offense, the small things you can do to get the biggest portion of the results. And that's what I'm going to be kind of focused on throughout this kind of conversation. So how do you go on offense? What does that sort of mean? It seems very kind of hand wavy and theoretical. Well, I just want to point out that, Charles Darwin, he wrote the theory of evolution, and he basically said that it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It's the one that's the most adaptable. So I think people often say, like, misattribute a quote to him saying it's the most, the strongest survive. And that's not the case. And, I'll kind of give you an example of how you can do that, but I want you to be in adaptation mode. And that's where you go leaning forward into this situation and going and saying, how do I adapt my business in ways that I would never have considered before? You've got new constraints and therefore new opportunities. So the core ways to adapt are what you offer, obviously. So if you sell products or services, what additional products or services can you sell, or how you sell it? Who do you offer it to? So is the market that used to buy your products or services still buying them? And if not, is there other ways you can expand in terms of who you sell to? How you communicate. And I think communication is a really big piece of marketing right now. So, not communicating is a slow decline, and that's, going to put you away really quick. So you need to communicate. So how do you communicate in a way that is responsive, that is, empathetic to the situation, that is contextually relevant? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then, pricing and payment terms. So is there a way that you can, innovate or change the way you price your products or services, or deliver them, or receive payment for them? So there's lots of interesting strategies around there. Finance folks will probably be a little bit better around the pricing and payment terms. I'm going to give you a few ideas, but I want to make sure that I stay with my core competency. Just to give you a quick idea of how I've adapted, because I think it's important to kind of give you a sense of, you all have your own stories. So I assume you've gone through a very similar process depending on the stage of business you're at. About 15 years ago, I was doing, web design and graphic design business cards for friends and family. And that sort of evolved into a freelance thing that I did kind of part-time while I was working for various companies. I would build their website, do their social media, what have you. So over the years, that's how I developed my skills. It started off as a hobby, turned into that. And then eventually I started a marketing agency, and I kind of focused on business to business companies. So companies that sell to other businesses. And that worked okay for a little while. But what I realized was I was doing high volume, hundreds of thousands in revenue, but low margin. It was 20 or 30% was my take home at the end of the day. So I was kind of like, this isn't really the best. I either have to become a big company, have to do things very differently. So I started doing marketing strategy consulting. So I took what I do with an agency, which is plan big marketing strategies and bring together resources and measure results and deliver a good quality experience. And I just sliced that off and I said, look, I'm now your kind of fractional chief marketing officer, or your advisor to your plan. And I'll bring in all those freelancers I used to hire for my agency and put you in direct contact with them. And now you can work with them. You don't pay my markup. You don't pay my fees. These people work around the world. And they're fantastic, and it's taken me years to find them. And so basically I just took what I did best. I charged for that as a fixed fee, which made my advice neutral. So I wasn't trying to sell you doing more of this or more of that or the other. My fee was the same. So that really worked well for me. And my profit margins went from 20 or 30% to, 80, 90, 100%. I didn't have any subcontractors. So my costs of goods sold were nothing other than, bookkeeping and accounting. So that really changed my business quite a bit. But the problem was I was still a little bit, all over the place. I was like, I'll help anybody with their marketing. Not really, but kind of, right? So my positioning was a bit weak. So one of my best clients was a co-working space. And so I looked around and I said, of my B2B clients, who is my best client? And one of them was a shared office space in Toronto. They were at one location at the time. They're now going on 9. Help them grow from 1 to 7, and I realized, look, there's an opportunity here. Maybe I can take all these experiences that I have, and really I've been able to deliver great results, and they've done really great things with them. Why don't I try applying it and focusing my specialty on the co-working industry, which is how I landed on Everspaces, and that worked really well. And since then, my business has continued to trickle up and up and up. And recently, what I've been doing, so I'm adapting still. when this whole sort of pandemic hit, a bunch of my co-working space clients are heavily affected. So I'm adapting in all kinds of ways to continue to serve them. One of them being through the membership, which is $100 a month, low cost membership, but also just, in general, there's all kinds of different services I'm doing, and I'm working with a different cohort of co-working spaces now than I was sort of before. And I'll talk about that if we need to later. But now I'm kind of mentoring other marketing freelancers and consultants. So I'm kind of, now I'm kind of finding ways of, like, there's a bunch of people that are doing marketing or consulting. How do I help them? And which is really just a passion project, but I'm continuing to adapt. So as one thing shifts, as one door closes, another door opens, and I'm, I consider myself pretty nimble. So I still work from 3 to 5. Those are still areas. I still work with other industries. I still work in co-working, and now I'm helping other freelancers, really mostly, right now for free, but this is an area that I see my business going in as a portion of it. So I'm eating my own dog food here in terms of adapting, and I think it'll work well for you too. I used to sell websites starting at $500. So this is an old site 6 years ago or so, or 7 years ago. $500 was the basic website package you could get. It was like a one-page website. It wasn't great, but hey, we would put it together and it was better than anything you had before. Website design has come a long way since then. Today I have reached this year, just last month, over $30,000 in monthly recurring consulting revenue. So to give you a sense of the difference in profit, it was not even the same category. So evolution has resulted in me, growing the business in ways that I would never, ever imagine. So it's really about continually refining, and these times are no exception. I'm still buying stuff, where people are still out there buying, businesses and otherwise. I've got big companies working with me right now to figure out their marketing as they go through this stuff, and small ones, but people are still buying. So how do you evolve your business and adapt it so that the profit levels go up, and maybe not necessarily the level of intensity of what you sell or what you offer does at the same time? So just wanted to show you that because it gives you some context into who I am, and I'm not just a bozo that sells marketing to co-working. That I think that there's a piece here that really shows that adaptation works. And so far I've been able to sustain the revenue in the last couple months. We'll see how things go in the future. But I'm going to continue to evolve no matter what happens, and I hope you do the same. So let's break this down a little bit. Let's get a little bit more tactical here. The first thing you want to adapt or potentially adapt is what you offer. So, that, like, depending on what you're selling, chances are you may need to sell in new and different ways. So let's break that down a little bit. So one thing to look at is, like, what is happening in the day-to-day lives of your customers, either professionally or personally. So there's a massive shift in behavior, how people are buying things, what they're buying. A lot of things are still the same. We're still buying groceries. We're still buying essentials. I see people getting soil dropped off at their house in my neighborhood. People are still buying stuff, but what's changing in the day-to-day lives? And when you're looking at marketing, when you're thinking about your customers, you say, let's analyze what's happening in their business or in their life, and let's see if we can map our product or service to that reality for the best, and help them achieve an outcome that they want. So reevaluating from scratch all the what's happening in day-to-day lives in your customers. And I recommend starting with your customers because you've already got a relationship with them. You can look at the macro economy and figure out what's going on and make some changes to your business accordingly. But start with your customers because you've got a relationship, and then we'll talk more about ways you can kind of expand what it is you sell. So if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right, at the very bottom, you got the physiological needs. And I think most of us, I certainly did in my family. Okay, do we have the food we need to, in case there's shortages, or do we have this, that, or the other? So, like, our basic needs, we really made sure that we had covered. We've got water, we have a newborn baby. So we're thinking, like, how much baby food do we need, and for how long do we need it? So, really covering off, sorry, Kim, you asked a question, and I'll get to that just at the end of the slide here, but really covering off your basic needs. And I think most people have more or less, they're still working on this. Everyone's hyper aware of their basic survival needs because, we've been exposed to a massive threat that we're just sort of like coping with. And hopefully that doesn't play out into a very long-term one. But so people have been kind of living there for a bit. I think now we're sort of moving up the ladder a bit to safety, needs. So, what does that look like? Am I able to go back to work and then continue to be safe? And I know Kim, for example, is working on some really great stuff to make sure that when she reopens, that the office is as safe and protective as can be. But people are continuing to move up the ladder. People are still, I had a ball net the other day because the kids are home all day and they just wanted to get the kids active and busy. So, people are still buying. So as time goes on, I think we're going to see more of a, as long as, the economy keeps working, which it will, we'll see more of a flow up and down of all the different things that we would typically buy. But I think in the beginning where there's like this crunch mode, like the defense mode, and now I think a lot of people are sort of opening up a little bit. Okay, great. Thanks, Kim, for clarifying. So if you were, the big question I ask with my clients is, if you were starting a business today, in today's, climate, what would you sell? And, I have a client, they sell, parking supplies, money processing deposit. This is a B2B e-commerce brand. So they sell mostly to retailers, banks, financial service providers, like entertainment and gaming, casinos, and law enforcement. And I said, guys, you are a specialty supplies company, and the needs are changing. So we don't need as many coin rollers because just we aren't using as many coins. What are you going to change? What are you going to do? And they started coming up with ideas, and we, looking first at the same clientele, the banks, the front workers, like retailers, grocery stores, the whole thing. And they said, well, what do they need now? Because those things have changed, and how can we use our supplies and logistics and our experience to get our hands on supplies and deliver new value to the current customers that we have, as well as potentially new customers, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So what do? They started sourcing COVID-19 response items. We put up this personal germ shield and got a landing page going and did a little bit of work, and now it's starting to rank number 1 week of putting it up, and now they get hundreds of leads every week just on this $200 item. Business is taking off. The business is doing as well or better than it ever has before because they're shifting. So slowly they layer on the physical distancing floor decals, the hand sanitizers, et cetera, and they're finding new ways to build and make some of these products, like the hand sanitizer station, or the clear glass face shield. So they're still serving a lot of the same people who work in banks, people who work in, delivery, like logistics, deliveries, the whole works, right? And they're selling new stuff. And so that's a constant evolution, and this will become part of their company history. So I recommend you kind of do the same. You'd be so surprised about what new markets, new opportunities has come up out of this way. But I want to try to give you a few examples to see if I can spark some ideas. So in terms of what you can, what you can offer, the world is very online. So how can you be very online as well? And I think that's kind of the main pivot that I'm sort of working with clients on, is like, I'm seeing new people coming in, and this is an example of, new business, but new people coming in that were mostly, like a culinary academy that wants to sell their education online. And, now they're doing that through courses and membership programs and all those other things. So how do you take what it is you offer, find that sliver of value, just like I did with my agency, where I said, look, I'm really good at providing a strategy, and I'm really good at pulling together the pieces and measuring things. And I like that part, but I really don't like the weeds, the heavy implementation, the tiny little details. I can do it. I just don't like it. So how do you take a sliver of what your clients would buy? So you see personal trainers going online. Here's a friend's business. They're called CrossFit Uncivilized. They're located in the West Coast of Canada, and they're bringing their workouts online. So members that stay with them and continue paying, because they've got $40,000 in overhead in their leases alone monthly, members that continue paying get access to an online training program, as well as they give them kettlebells, and they give them one piece of workout equipment that they can use at home. So now they're doing daily coaching and in all kinds of sessions and that kind of thing. So they're getting it. They're not waiting. They're not playing defense. They're going right on the offense, and they're doing everything they can to still deliver the sliver of value that their clients and potential clients want, but they're doing it online. So another great example of kind of innovation as much as you can. Create a worst case scenario. So, reasonably speaking, I think things are going to evolve, positively as time goes on. We're going to have good news and bad news, but good news, and we're going to head in a direction that's positive. But think about it. If the world was never the same again, what would you do? What does the world look like, even in a worst case scenario, such that you can still sell stuff, such that you can still survive, such that you can still thrive, right? So, having, I kind of have two parallel tracks in my mind at any given time. One is best case scenario. I'm naturally very optimistic. I naturally see opportunity in things. That's just my personality. My wife is more, pragmatic and seeing, she's a lawyer, so it's more about risk aversion. But I also then look at what does the negative situation look like, and what would it look like if, something was completely different, and, whatever. So I kind of look and I figure out how would I survive and how would I do well under both circumstances. So I like to play that thought experiment. I still always focus on the opportunities, not what I'm losing. I just don't see that as helpful as an entrepreneur right now. So that's the what you can offer in terms of how you adapt it. Breaking down the who you offer it to, there's a few ways you can change who you're offering your product and services to. First, I would say don't change if you can avoid it. So really doubling down on your current best customers. So, even in the co-working industry, that's right now kind of in limbo a little bit, right? As with many other industries, I have a lot of clients and more inquiries now from people who are multi-location, bigger, they've got more resources. Maybe they partner with landlords so they don't have the same financial overhead as others might have. And, so I'm now working with a sort of a smaller sliver of the market and helping them while they're kind of having downtime, quote unquote. I see a lot of people laying off entire staff members except their marketing team or their marketing person, and now that marketing person needs support. So I'm thinking about who are my best customers, who are the ones that have the ability to pay me first and foremost, and who can I have the biggest impact with. And over time, I'm going to continually evolve how I position that particular service for those multi-location, larger co-working spaces. So it's interesting to see how the evolution is happening. Also, the membership program, which is a low-cost way of getting access to ideas and education, is also doing okay. So it's kind of like the edges work really well, and I've created a new tier of service. Anyway, I won't get into the details, but the edges are working very well. So the high ticket for the the bigger clients, and the lower ticket for the lower revenue clients. So first, double down on who you already serve, because in there's an 80-20. There's opportunity. Then look at adjacencies. So who can you sell to that looks similar to the business you already work with, the businesses you already work with, or the individuals you already work with. So if you're a CrossFit trainer, could you also pivot and say, we're helping do diet programs for women in their 50s or something, right? Like, is there a way, if you normally do this, is there a way to expand it and offer kind of niche products or niche products just outside of the core market you currently sell to? Because chances are there is, and chances are certain demographics will need things, or types of businesses will need things new and differently. So who can you serve? And then who can you serve that looks around it? An example of this, in addition to co-working, is me helping marketing freelancers and consultants. I think there's a lot I can do to help them. And that would just be an example of expanding a new section of my business in terms of who I can serve. And then I also say, reimagine the business you're in. Like, just because you are a financial services provider doesn't mean you can't potentially do virtual assistance services and hire someone and mark up their time, or offer bookkeeping, or just because you're in this industry doesn't mean you can't start selling random stuff. Like my colleagues or my clients there with the e-commerce business, just because they've never sold medical gear doesn't mean they can't do that right now. So if you sell products or you sell services, just literally what else can you sell? And that comes down to what is the market buying and who do you have access to? So the third part of adapting is adapting how you communicate. So communication is key, and there's poor ways to communicate these days, and there's great ways to communicate. I think that the main thing is you do want to be communicating. You want to do so in a way that is contextually relevant, that is not deaf or tone deaf, as you might hear some people doing. And there's a bunch of ways you can do that. One is, I would advise you to sort of take the situation seriously. So, different people are going to have different levels of concern or negative experience with this whole kind of situation. What I typically recommend is, as a business, it's, in your communications, it's better to take the concerned end. Like, hey, we're taking this very seriously. If you picture a stick, this is a stick, if you couldn't tell. And there's two ends of the stick. If you pick up the concerned end, your clients and the market and people paying attention to you can pick up the relaxed end. They know you've got the concern taken care of. But if you take up the relaxed end and treat it like it's nothing, and you're not really thinking about it, then it's going to create some kind of bad thoughts and concern, and because they have to pick up that other end of the stick. So as a business and with your communication, it's good to address the situation, pick up the concerned end of the stick, deal with it head on, and then move on. It doesn't mean you have to live at this level of concern. It just means we have this as the context, and now we're going to continue running our business and doing great things for you. So it's a good kind of context to have. As you're communicating, you want to go back to this Maslow's hierarchy of needs here, where, you cover safety, right? The biggest threat to your business is someone getting sick. And right now, in addition to all kinds of other things, but someone getting sick. So what are you doing to keep your employees safe? What are you doing to keep your customers safe? What are you doing to keep your family safe? Whatever it is, depending on your business, whether you're a personal brand or a larger business, make sure that you're covering off that sort of, as we continue to do business, here's how we're taking things seriously. And then tell stories about how you're adapting, both in terms of what services and products you're offering, as well as, what you're doing to keep people safe. I think, we're in a time where people want to hear what you're doing and how your businesses are changing. And that's really going to give people a sense of connection to your company and, allow people to feel like they understand what's going on, which is just good marketing. Good marketing is just having a good product service, doing interesting things and telling interesting stories in addition to some other stuff. So again, adaptation. So the other ways you can adapt. So we've talked about what you sell. So if you sell products or services, what else can you sell in terms of products or services? Who you offer to. So if you sell them to certain groups, how do you sell it to a very specific segment of the people, of your current customers who are still buying, or maybe they're all buying, but maybe that's changed within your customer group. And how do you then create products and services around that group of people who are still buying and make that really, really useful to them? And then how do you find new people to additionally serve? Now, the fourth part of the sort of the adaptation is your pricing and payment plans. So I won't go deep onto this, but I do want to kind of give you a sense of some ideas that I've seen and that I've used and employed, and it's worked fairly well so far. So one would be to defer payments if you can, if you're able in a cash position to defer payments but still accrue revenue. So for example, if you're a tax preparer or if you're a professional services provider like I am, can you defer, I've had a couple arrangements with clients where, look, you don't have to pay me this month, you can pay me in 3 months or at the end of this month, or, kind of deferring it, pushing it off so that we're able to continue giving them value because they need it. And then I can get paid a little bit later on. So I'm still accruing the revenue, but I'm not getting the cash in the door right away. And I think that's both customer centric. It's good business practice, but it also lets them get value out of you as much as you can. And it allows you to continue earning money. And it won't be the same for everybody. So this is a case by case scenario. One thing you can do, and I'm not like a huge proponent of this, is you could in theory secure less revenue for longer commitments. So I did have one client that things were very uncertain with, and I said, hey, look, we have a lot to cover in the financial insecurity, although it looks like you're going to do okay, and I can help you, succeed as best I can. Why don't we reduce my fees, spread it out over a longer period of time, and then therefore they get more stability in terms of their cost projections into the future, and I've secured cash that I can now use month over month to continue growing and surviving my business. So that's worked okay. It turns out they're doing great now, and this was not necessary. And so that's why in the beginning I said, don't panic, don't overreact, don't freak out. Had I just stayed the course, it would have been fine and my fees would have been higher, but who knows, right? So this is one strategy to employ gently if you need to, but something to kind of consider is taking less, spreading it out. It reduces your risk, but it also reduces your profit. So I don't use that widely across everything. The other thing is creating a downsell offer. So a lot of my one-to-one services for small businesses are now not really super practical for the prices that they're at. So I've been creating with the co-working industry a $500 a month instead of a $1,500 a month plan that's in a group setting. And that's a downsell. So people that were in the one-to-one stuff, I could say, hey, if you want to come over here and do work for, it's going to less high touch, but less money, but many of the same benefits. Here's something that can work well for you. So you still have that benefit and you still come out of this on the other side strong, as opposed to waiting or playing defense or doing things on your own. And that's worked really well for me. The other thing is that, this is an example of Zoom. I have a webinar package and I was going to downgrade my plan the other day to turn it off because most of my webinars are done in a kind of group call setting. And they offered me 40% off. So maybe Kim, if you're doing this as a webinar, try canceling your Zoom webinar package. They'll give you a 40% off plan for the entire year, but you have to sign up for the year. So this is actually the two things that I just mentioned. One is taking less money for a longer period of time because they don't know if you're going to cancel and then not get that revenue at all. So they've agreed, we'll take less, but we want that for the whole year. And that way it's that finding that balance. So, this is a really interesting value proposition to consider. And if anyone has a Zoom webinar subscription, I think you can take a look at maybe canceling it and seeing if you get the same offer. Uh, and that's just another reason why you don't want to promote this or widespread. This is a one-to-one conversation with your clients on a case-by-case basis based on their individual needs. So, do we got to do on that side of thing? Because if word gets out, then you've got to discount business, which isn't good for your brand. Moving along, so I think right now it's really hard to maybe get new business, and if your industry is hit particularly hard, and I say this with the co-working business, for example, or even restaurants or others, your plan is to come out of this on the other side one way, shape, or form. And whether you can deliver value, whether you can deliver products or services, whether you can stay open or not, doesn't prohibit you from building an audience. So I think, yes, you want to get business in as much as you can, but I think if you can't, and even if you can, building an audience is going to be an asset that's going to pay you dividends over time. So with many of the co-working spaces who don't have large demand right now in terms of net new members, I'm telling them, look, build your audience, build your awareness, build your exposure, build your surface area. So I'm going to talk to you a few strategies on how to build an audience for your business, so that you can both get new leads in the door, but also build it so that when we come out on the other side and as things kind of free up and get back to normal, you'll have more opportunities coming your way, which will be an asset that continues to pay off. And that's the big thing is, your business, your audience is an asset. And a lot of people kind of underestimate just how much that is the case. So you can do this and I'll kind of break into it. Number one is think like a media company. But actually, before I even say think like a media company, think in terms of specifics. If you're in a niche industry or a business that sells to a specific industry, that helps a lot. So when I started Everspaces, my email list went into the hundreds very, very quickly, relatively speaking. And with my general consulting practice, my email list is slow and mostly marketers join it, which is another reason I've kind of pivoted to help marketers as well. So it was really hard for me to build an audience with a general market. So if you can pick a very specific group of people, which is always good marketing, you can build audiences which are going to work really well. So how do you build the audiences? First, ideally be specific about the value you serve and who it's for. And that could be psychographic. It could be stuff that they care about. It could be something else. So, but just try to find that specific thing that people can rally around. And then think like a media company. So what does a media company do? They tell stories, they educate, and they entertain. And those are really the three forms of content marketing that you're doing. So right now we're educating and I'm telling stories through this educational process. I'm not entertaining. I'm not very funny. So I don't play, a funny guy on TV. The case in point. But yeah, you've got three kind of core ways to do it. Now, how you employ one of these three pieces of content depends on who you're targeting, and only share stuff that is valuable in and of itself, that is either entertaining when they consume it instantly, or is educational, or with the case of stories, it helps me get to know you or the company a little bit better, so that I have a closer connection to your business. Those are your three core pillars. And when it comes to sharing content and building your media asset, it's leaving it all on the table is sort of the best way to think about it, and trying not to just put little slivers out and then making people click and find out and dig hard for more. So let me give you an example. Here's a Twitter thread from Marketing Examples, and they created a blog post, and they broke down the blog post in a series of parts, including the screenshots and all the good content, broke it down into a series of tweets on Twitter in a thread. So on the left, it's like the headline, followed by the first point, the second point, the third point, the fourth point. Give some credit, and then they link to the blog post at the end. So I don't really have to go to their website in order to follow them. So what am I going to do? I'm going to follow this Instagram or this Twitter account because they leave a lot of good content on the table on the platform that I'm on. So a lot of people will just find a link and go, oh, this is great, you should go check it out. But now you're creating more work, and most people just want to stay and digest content on the platform. So this is valuable. He's not just tweeting like, oh, went to the bank today, whatever, there's a lineup. Like, okay, maybe that's relevant or interesting depending on how you spin it, but he's giving a bunch of value in this tweet thread where I don't have to go anywhere to get it. It's just consumed. So that's how you'll develop more of a social media following. One of the many ways. The others is like engagement and commenting and sharing and liking other people's posts and all that good stuff. But the name of the game is great content and leave as much of it as you can on the table. The other way to think about content is there's sort of macro versus micro content. So on the left, I have a tweet here about having time to think and evolving and not reacting. That's me putting the value of the post on social media, and that's a piece of micro content. That's the end of it. There's no there's no article to link to or anything of that nature. So micro content is great, and that can really get your message out like little seeds, dandelion seeds, going around the world. That's really great. And if you can create that kind of content frequently enough, that's very good, high value, and either tells stories, educates, or entertains, that's great. Meaningless stuff where you just say, oh, I wish the bank wasn't so far from my house. Like that's not going to build any followers. So unless it entertains, educates, or tells a story that people care about, you're not going to have great results. So micro content is great because you can get out everywhere. And then the macro content are things like blog posts, webinars like this, podcast episodes, longer form, heavier pieces of content that you can then disperse into micro content and all the different platforms. So it's good to think of both. And I tend to skew more towards the macro content, but lately I've been more focused on how do I create micro content as well. It's just a matter of time, right? So 2 ways to think about it. Some people aren't great at writing blog posts, don't have a podcast, don't want to do video, but they're really great on social media. So like everything, do what you do best and get it out there. So micro content might be your avenue, and just know that that's totally fine. Ideally, you drive people back to your website though at some point in time. So another way to build audiences is to share with non-competitive partners. So let's say you sell mops to retailers, and but someone who sells brooms to retailers, and they're not competitive. You're not selling the same products or services, but you have the same audience, you have the same target market. Is there ways that you can share, get exposure, get yourself in front of their audience, and vice versa? Actually, I noticed yesterday that some people right now, paid newsletters are a thing. And so you can pay to subscribe to newsletters. It's probably a tech thing or a marketing thing. So not all of you will be interested in that world, but you can pay like $5 or $10 a month to get access to a newsletter. People have been bundling them lately and getting more results that way. So audiences are being meshed, and the economics of that ends up working out better for both parties for various reasons. But that's just one example of, in your email newsletter, if you can partner with people and maybe sell a product together. Let me just give you the examples here. You'll have a lot better, you'll basically create pollination, and both people will benefit more from it, especially when you're not selling the same things to the same people. Ideally, you're selling different things, but the same people. And the same people might also be local. So if you're just like a local ice cream shop, can you partner with the local, burger joint or what have you? Maybe not the burger joint, but like, something else where you've got the same group of people. They're all local. So you're in a small community or a big city, but a small neighborhood. So the same people, but like you're not selling the same stuff. So Instagram takeovers or featuring one another are great things to do. Sharing each other's content on social media. And I think this is a good thing to do anyway. If you see something that, a colleague or someone else who's doing something, and you can share their content because your audience would also value it and it doesn't hurt you. Even if you sold the same stuff, I'm not a big believer on the level of competition, but if you can share stuff from them, you're going to create reciprocity, and they're going to share stuff of yours as well. Can you do guest webinars or educator, add value to their audience in a similar way that I'm doing this? I was just happy to do this for Kim, but, can you get content? Can you educate other people's industries and other people's markets, or other people's audiences? Podcast interviews are a great way of sharing audiences. So, you come onto someone's podcast and then you promote your interview on their podcast, so they get access to your audience, and also they promote you on their podcast, so you get access to their audience. It's a great thing to do. It just makes your audiences bigger collectively. Cross-promoting related products and services. So, if someone is launching this thing and there's someone, that has the same audience as you, or, you think, hey, look, why don't I promote the fact that they're releasing this new product or service to my audience? Cause like you like them, you trust them, you know them, and you're just doing them a favor. Again, that's going to create reciprocity for both people. So mentioning each other in other people's email newsletters, and then even doing things like joint venture products or services, like I mentioned with the 2 email lists, the 2 paid email subscriptions that merge, that bundled together to create a joint venture. So it's the same way like Spotify, merges all these different artists together, and everyone makes more money than if we were trying to sell $12 individual CDs or albums. Same idea. So can you join forces with people that you're not competing with? So if you're a bookkeeper, can you join forces with a tax preparer or an accountant or a CFO and sell complementary services to the same group of people? That's how I'd be thinking. And then the last piece in regards to your audience is, building a community around your niche or your niche. I'm Canadian, so we say niche here, but yeah, can you do that? So I think that's a big piece that a lot of people are missing. So if you are, let's say you're a personal trainer, or you're a financial services provider, or you sell something else, like, can you create a little online hub? It won't work for everybody, but can you create an online place where your target market can come and congregate and share ideas and get to know one another? Here's one of my clients. They're a CRM specialized in the speaking business, another industry that's been taken quite by storm. They've created an online speaking community just for professional speakers, and that's been growing slowly over time. But it's a great way to foster communication and build, share content, and it also allows you to sort of develop an audience. So if you can have a free place to invite people back to, it's just a nice way to kind of develop more attention. And I've got one of these. This is just a screenshot of one of my landing pages. This is the group Kim belongs to, where it's a membership program. It's $100 a month, and you get access to a course and paid, there's resources and coaching calls and webinars and that kind of stuff. So like online communities are just such a great way to build an audience. You can have free ones or paid ones like I do, and they work really, really well. So shifting gears a little bit, I want to kind of just show you how building an audience can kind of work to help you visualize all these pieces that I just mentioned. So in the beginning, you got your website or your platform. So that's your website, or maybe it's your YouTube channel or your podcast host, what have you. That would be your platform, but your website is your main platform. And when you put content, round circles indicate content, people will naturally see it. Some people just come to your website, they read that content, they consume it, they like it. You've now developed a very small audience, and ideally they keep coming back if the content is good enough. But what happens when you create micro content, when you share and repurpose that stuff on social media, when you put it on your newsletter, more people find it in those places, and then ideally it drives back to your website, creating more eyeballs on your website as well as on social media and by email. And then again, once these people who see your content on social media and by email, they consume it, they like it, it's good, you've left value on the table, you've delivered stuff that they actually care about, they like it, they comment on it, they share it, they engage with it, and then their network now, of the people who liked it and shared it are now being exposed to your message. And you start to see that over time, strangers start to get, there's your platform, there's your social media channels, more and more people are seeing it. There's the network of the people that you belong to, your ecosystem. And then there's like complete strangers who are like 2 steps removed from your business. And this process happens over and over again. So if you're not creating content on your website, that's one thing. You're going to miss some attention, some eyeballs, some reason to bring people back into your home base where you can sell stuff. If you're not publishing stuff on social media, then you're not going to have the network, and you're not going to have the strangers, and so on and so forth. So the more of these layers you do, the bigger your audience will be. The fewer of these layers you do, the smaller your audience will be. And it's sort of exponential. And I think that's a word we're all very familiar with these days. But the growth can be exponential depending on how good your content is, how much of it you leave on the table and not try to force people to jump through hoops to consume it, how easy it is to consume. And then, based on that is how much people will engage with it, and then how big and broad your audience can be, which will bring people closer together. I hope this visualization makes sense. And then here's just a mess of stuff I put together, but this is what combining audiences look like. So when 2 ecosystems collide, you get a lot more overlap, and then both, picture these as like kind of solar systems, both will, accrue more content. So what you're doing is creating marketing gravity. So the bigger you are, the more stuff you'll attract to you, just like a planet, and you're creating a broader surface area. So the bigger you are, meaning the more reach you have through your content, the more likely someone is to bump into you. So I call that surface area and marketing gravity. So hopefully this visualization helps. And if you're not doing this stuff, even getting your, dipping your toe in the water and just getting started will really help you. It doesn't have to be great. It'll get better over time, I promise. We're kind of rounding third here, to use a baseball analogy. But, I think we just want to remember that people are still buying. So making sure your business has a very relevant, compelling offer, even when demand might be a little bit lower, is a good thing to have, and constantly tweaking and shifting. So the way I built my consulting business is I created a custom proposal for someone, they bought it. So I innovated at some point, they bought it, and then I published it after selling 1 or 2 of those as a fixed price, fixed fee service. But then over time, every single new client that goes to buy it, I put it through their lens to make sure that it's still relevant to them. And my proposals will tweak it slightly, and I'll change it on my website. But having a compelling offer that evolves with demand. So as people buy stuff, formalize it, try to sell more of it and keep tweaking it and evolving it so that's a no-brainer offer for people. So just some closing thoughts for you. I wanted to kind of summarize a few of the things we talked about and then give you a few more last pieces of kind of guidance as much as I can. Be on the offense. So being on, like, don't wait. I know it's, we have a desire to just like throw our hands in the air, and many of you have been super busy. So the fact that some of you are here is fantastic, and I appreciate it. But keep going on the offense. Lean into the situation. Don't expect things to get back to normal. Just evolve. Just change. Just keep going and keep tweaking what you do. If there's ever a time to make a change in your life, it's now. I think, and then double down on what works, frankly. So be on the offense, pivot what you're doing, who it's for, how it's working, how you communicate it, right? As much as you can, using some of those guidelines I gave you. Safety will be table stakes. So if you're selling stuff in the physical world, innovate, find safe ways to deliver it. Even if the risk is very low of transmission, just find that way of being ultra safe, taking that worried, concerned end of the stick on behalf of your customers, and talk about it. Meet your market where they are. So sell the basketball nets. Kids are at home now. So what can you sell to them? Like, figure out what's going on if in your customers' lives, personally and professionally. Continue to build your audience. So again, don't necessarily focus on lead gen, especially if you're not in an industry that can really drive new business right now, very substantial. How do you create an audience of people that will be your best customers on the other side of this as the economy loosens up a little bit again? Have a compelling offer, make sure it's competitive, make sure it's still contextually relevant. The value of your service yesterday or product is going to be vastly different than today. And we see that with masks going through the roof and toilet paper coming off shelves, but then other things staying, not selling at all. So, a $5,000 product yesterday might be worthless right now. So continuing to evolve and making an offer that you feel is very, very valuable to your target market will be great. And then have a worst case scenario sort of planned out. So what would you do if you couldn't go back to the way you were running business before? And this goes back to like, what business would you be in if you were to start it today? And start working on it, and at least visualize both visions, but hedge your bets, and that'll just make you a stronger business overall. A few more kind of closing thoughts that we didn't really talk about. One is really getting clear on why should I choose you. So this is a differentiation piece, but if you can't give people a good, clear reason why they should buy from you versus anyone else, then you've got so many problems in your marketing. So really get clear on why they should choose you. Even if it's just you're the best local option, you're the only local option, heck, like you're the most convenient option, that's fine. But like, just in your head, answer why should people choose you. And if you don't know that answer, that's where the adaptation and evolution, I think, is going to be really valuable. So yeah, I don't know how I can emphasize that more, but why should I choose you, and making sure that that's really clear. The other thing is, if I removed your logo and branding and described your business, would I know who you are? And a lot of us, our tendency, especially in the beginning, is to build a Me Too business, is to build something that looks like a professional local firm or local company, and is as good. And, they price match, they, compare, and they just try to do the same thing. And that can be a big problem. So if I remove your logo and your branding and you described your business, would I know who you are in the market? Or would I mistake you for one of the many other options? And that's going to really determine how good your marketing is at the end of the day. A weak value proposition, meaning, the value, the results you're helping someone get. If that's weak, if that's not very strong or compelling, and you're not very different, it's going to be like marketing is going to feel like cutting a tree down with the back of an axe, and you're going to fall on deaf ears. So what you want to do is be very specific about who you serve and why you're better. And that then puts a point on your axe, and then you can huck down a tree in no time. So these pieces of advice from a marketing strategy point of view is going to be your best assets. And I hope this helps. I know this is sort of high level, but hopefully you've gotten some value out of this. I'll take any questions if you have any. I know I fire hosed you a little bit, so if you don't have any, I understand, but I'll take any questions you have. You can always reach out to me if you want, Kevin@everspaces.com. If you want to just say hi or have any other questions.
While y'all are thinking of questions, I should have said this at the beginning, but it is definitely worth signing up for Kevin's email list. Although he is specific to co-working spaces, a lot of the times the content is still very good and can be applied to any business. And they're short and to the point, and just makes you think. So I would definitely suggest that y'all sign up for his email list. Can they just do that on your website?
They can, yeah. I mean, it's going to be very focused on the co-working industry, but but yeah,
But it
it's
can be
just the
applied to
principles.
anything. They're great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great
thank you.
principles.
Yeah,
Yep.
everspaces.com. You'll see it right on the very front there. You can also go to kevin.me, where I'll be probably posting a bit more generic content. And that's more for like other small businesses and freelancers and marketing professionals. So if you're a marketing professional, or you're a small business and you want to kind of get that stuff, that's another place you can go for it.
Yeah. Okay. I loved a lot of the stuff that you said. I was just thinking, I don't see any questions right now, but could you break down for us why I should choose you? I'm totally putting you on the spot, but can you think of just like a generic company that people might be in?
Mm-hmm.
And going through how you would answer that question.
Well, I mean,
Sorry.
with that, let's say with Everspaces, right?
Or you, yeah,
I'll
okay,
start with
yeah,
me, and then I'll give you another example. So with Everspaces, I can pass the two tests. One is there's really no one out there who specializes in marketing strategy for co-working spaces exclusively and flexible offices. So if I were to remove my logo and describe, and especially advisory services and education, if I were to remove my logo, I'd be a category of one, is what I call it. So
right,
why choose me? Well, I've worked in dozens of businesses, and I've helped many of them, and have seen massive success with multi-location guys, especially. So like, why choose me? Well, it's like I've got a proven track record in that industry, and I work inside the dozens of businesses, and I'm the only guy out there. So like, there's all these pieces, right? So I think one of the better ways to do it is if you are I like to jockey two realities. One is the specialized version, and one is like more general, because I get a lot of people coming to me needing help, and I like to have a place to receive them. But if you can have like a very specific, like let's say you're let me give you an example. Let's say you're a lawyer, right? But they have certain practices, but let's say you can get two levels deep is a way to niche yourself. So let's say you don't just do contract law, you do contract law for co-working spaces. So now you have a way of getting in front of hundreds of co-working spaces through joint ventures, sharing audiences in a way that gives you a very specific value proposition, makes you a category of one, because you do law for a very specific segment of the market. Now that may seem very small, but now you're like, look, if you want a contract drawn up, you can go to any lawyer and they'll spend hours figuring this stuff out. Or you can come to me, and I have like dialed this process in so far that I'm like the only guy you'd want to talk to. And maybe there's three of us. Great. I'm the guy, and I've got a very unique kind of service. So that would be one way. And you don't have to build your whole business around co-working contracts. Like you can literally just create what I call audience pages, or like segments of your website, and then allows people to go in different directions. And then don't just go one level deep, find a way to go two levels deep. So don't just help consultants help marketing consultants. Don't just help real estate help co-working, and find many different ways you can do that. The fewer that you have, the easier it is to market yourself, the more credible you come across, and the better your products and services are.
mm-hmm.
Those things you do, the harder it is.
Yeah, that was great. And I'm smiling because I've heard these answers.
Yeah,
And it's still things that we're working on.
Yep.
Oh me. Okay, there is a question. And it says, I feel like I'm spending a lot of time and energy on creating content. And sometimes it doesn't feel like the best use of time, especially since there is so much content out there right now. And my sense is that some folks are overwhelmed with content options.
Yeah.
What is a minimum or a maximum amount of content or effort to put towards content creation and sharing? That is a great, great question.
Yeah. I'm going to say a few things here. So one, you're not actually in the business of delivering the service that you deliver. You're in the business of getting customers for the service that you deliver. So as the entrepreneur, that is your job. And yes, you need to deliver it, but that's table stakes. And yes, you need to be unique. And yes, you need to do it really well. But the rest of the time, you have to be getting new business. And you can eventually hire some of that out as you scale. But without clients, you have no business. So yeah, like I would say put 30, 40, 50% of your time towards marketing if you can. And if you can't, you can't. But like I built my business, for example, that before noon, I don't take any business, any calls. And then afternoon, I'm mostly on the phone all day. And I spend that time working on my business and marketing as much as I can. So Kim recommending my email list is one example of me putting out short posts that I can get done in half a day. And I used to do it every single day. And now I've slowed down a bit with the baby that I have. So the question is like, how much should you create? As much as you can, but then to take that a level deeper is don't just spray and pray content. Create as much as you can that people value and is good quality and that leaves on the table. So it's not about broadening the surface area to your detriment. People will ignore it and tune it out. So if you can create the best quality content at the fastest cadence that you can, and I know it's a busy time, we're all shifting and evolving. So I would say the minimum you want to focus to get even more tactical is once a week on, say, an email list. Like your email is the highest. Taking it another step, your email is the highest ROI channel of all of them that you have. So every dollar you spend, statistics show you get $40 out on your email. So finding ways to get at least to a weekly cadence. People ignore stuff that happens sporadically, but they'll pay attention to a weekly cadence. So try to get one really good email newsletter out if you can. And that could be combining 5 or 6 articles or one article, or just 5 or 6 things you found, or just your thoughts, just thoughts on the page. That's going to really serve you. There's massive audiences have been built with a once a week email list. And the content that goes into it can then get distributed out onto social media the following week or as you find it. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, think less, but better. Go deeper on very specific topics. It's not about being broad. It's about very, very specific. You should only be really talking about 3, 4, or 5 different things and just talking about it from many different angles. And, but you have to put aside the time to spend on your marketing or you're going to be out of business. Like that's just coming from a marketer, but this is the process of evolution. Mm-hmm. So I hope that helps.
I love that. I think I wrote it down correctly. Not in the business, correct me if I'm wrong. We're not in the business of selling our products or services. We're in the business of getting more customers to buy your products or services. So
yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it changes the way you think about it.
Yeah,
like, for sure. Yeah. And
definitely.
It changes how you offer, it changes what you offer and changes what you do, because if you're finding you're not able to sell stuff, you've got a product problem.
Yeah.
Right. So it's feedback for your business, the rest of your business. I'd rather delegate the operations to more of an extent than to delegate the marketing, which is me. Yeah.
Well, it's a little bit after 11:30, so we want to be respectful of everybody's time. Thank you, Kevin. That was great. So good. Thank you to everybody who joined us today. If you follow Forge on Instagram, Facebook, or our newsletter, which you can sign up on our website, we will keep you informed of all that we're doing. We do always try to provide content, information. So if you have a topic that you would like discussed, please let us know. We will follow up with an email with a recording of this. So if you want to go back and watch it with Kevin's slides, it'll also live on Facebook. So if you want to share it with somebody who would find this really helpful, we'd love for y'all to do that. And we'll also have Kevin's contact info if you wanted to get in touch with Kevin and just follow up on anything. Sign up for his newsletter. I think you will appreciate it. But thank y'all for joining us today, and we hope that you have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.